Welcome to the Real Mom Hub, where we celebrate the beautiful, profound transformation into motherhood.
It's a journey that shatters and rebuilds us in incredible ways. We share the voices of everyday moms honing and discovering their natural instincts and superpowers.
We talk to experts to try and make sense of our minds and bodies.
We air out the hard parts of parenting people don't like to talk about.
Because let's be honest, motherhood is as hard as it is joyful.
So why not embrace it? Lean into the growth, the struggle, the magic. This is your opportunity for complete and utter personal transformation.
Come with us. We're so glad you're here.
Hey, everybody. We are so excited to chat with Dr. Erica Boland today on the pod. She is a chiropractic focusing on core and pelvic health therapy for women. She runs practice with her husband, Kyle. But more than that, she's a midwife. She has history as a doula. We go through all things pelvic floor.
She's also a mom of 4. She's been through multiple pregnancies and postpartums of her own. So she has all this knowledge and wisdom. We start with pelvic floor health and really what that means. It was mind-boggling for both Emily and myself as 2 people who have done some pelvic floor therapy, done a fair amount of research. It was actually a whole new world. We're thrilled about it. So tune in for that. We talk about matrescence. We talk about finding your stillness as a mom, trusting your gut. What else? So much.
Right now, I'm about to hit play and just re-listen to the whole thing, which I probably will 5 times over because this is a phenomenal conversation.
And share it with all my friends in a totally non-self-absorbed way. Really in like a, you need to hear this way.
So we hope that you find this information helpful and that it offers the support that it gave us.
Problem. Oh, I've been looking for curtains for my office that have the pattern of your shirt on them.
Really? It is heavier material.
Oh, so maybe I could make it into curtains.
There you go. It's probably a pretty expensive purchase to try to get several and make into curtains, but
it's a very small window. That's it.
Oh, yeah, you probably could. Just hang one in the window.
How's your day going? Thanks for joining us.
Busy, but good.
I'm so excited to dive into any of the 20 conversations we could have today. Because as I'm reading more about your work, I'm like, she does what? Oh, and then she also, and then that too?
Certifiably crazy, I think is what they call it. So,
well, Emily wants to talk all about matrescence, and I want to learn how to stop peeing myself. So,
okay.
We got it. We got it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to dive in. For our listeners, could you just tell them a little bit about what a typical day looks like for you? We can include your professional sphere, your personal sphere, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, a typical day for me looks like I wake up and I journal before I get on my phone and or work out. So my journal session is first, and then I either lift or run, and then I go back to the house and help get 4 boys ready and off to school. Realistically, only one of them needs my help anymore. And then I start seeing patients at the clinic on Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And my schedule is just open. So either my midwifery clients or chiropractic patients can book with me. And so my day will look anywhere from seeing peds for developmental milestones to seeing women for core and pelvic floor to seeing midwifery, postpartum or prenatal clients, or consults for future upcoming births. And then, of course, because I am a business owner, there's trying to shove all the business aspects in between all of that. And yeah, so actually, I'm glad you asked that question because it feels a little more of a flow now, but probably because my kids are 9 and up and not little anymore, where things tend to be a little bit more intense as far as the time commitment and demands.
Were you doing this when you had little kids?
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah, our oldest son will be 18 in August, which is wild. And so I was 19 when I had him. So he's been through all of it with us. My husband's a chiropractor as well. So I had two more kids while I was in chiropractic school, and then the youngest was born 3 years into practice.
That's a
I don't
lot.
recommend doing it that way. It's crazy, so but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, it sounds like such a
So
good
cool.
melding of professional interests, how you need to structure your life. Kind of the dream. Did you
Yeah.
see it looking like this when you started out?
No, I have learned that it never ends up looking like what we imagined, but I think always for the better, right? I think that our things are divinely planned or in line. The universe has, God has plans that are far more powerful than we can plan in our mind. And some of that's hard, and some of it's really beautiful, and it almost never goes exactly as expected. And that's also kind of like birth. I would say there are certain pieces of my journey that it's like, yes, I knew that this would be eventually, and it's easy to say that in hindsight. And when I talk about that, I say like when you get a ping or your instincts or just that inner knowing that I need to follow this path. But I think the experience and maturity, you have to realize that you're going to follow that path and there's going to be things that are going to come up. And then you just pivot and shift as you need to along the path that you're feeling called to.
Did not expect that from this conversation, and I loved it.
Yeah,
It
that could
was
be a
so
good ender.
beautiful.
Should we end now?
Right.
Yeah,
So
right. Sure. That sums it up, honestly.
have you journaled this whole time, like even as with itty bitties? Because I always have this aspiration, and I'll do it for a couple of weeks. It just feels like you are so quiet and you're really tapped into, your prayer life or your inner wisdom, whatever that looks like for you.
My kids would laugh at you saying that I seem so quiet. My friends would laugh. No, I
Maybe at
haven't.
5 a.m.
Maybe
Right.
calm. Is calm a different word?
Yeah, no, not that one either, but no, I haven't, but I am better when I do. So actually, I got off track with my journaling and I found the book through a friend and client. Actually, it's called Something Amazing is About to Happen. And it challenges you to do this for 90 days. And so, specifically, opening your journal first, which I know I have been in and out of practice with like a sacred start or just meditation or prayer or whatever in the morning. And I am a better human when I do because then it's letting like God or spirit in before the world is. Because I think about starting your day with other people's life, that's so overwhelming. And that's what most of us do. I'm not going to lie to you and say that that's perfect, but it's like anything in life, like the functional progression for core and pelvic floor or your nutrition or whatever. You will use it and you will see how good it is for you and how much you benefit from it. And then you get feeling pretty good and you get a little bit away from it. And then you get humbled and you're reminded, oh yeah, I need to return to that.
Okay, so you have been a doula, you are a midwife now, you own a chiropractic clinic with your husband, and you work as a chiropractor.
Yes.
You wear so many hats, so I'm excited to kind of go all over in this conversation. But let's start with the pelvic floor because I know Callie really she's got some questions for you. My real heavy hitter question for you is, what is our pelvic floor? Can you just
Awesome.
describe it in the most basic way?
Yeah. So in the most basic way, it is like the bottom of your pelvis. It's your foundation. Technically, your pelvic floor is the layers of muscle at the bottom of your pelvis, and your perineum is the external, like skin, vulva, labia, all of that. And so when I teach, I tend to refer to perineum and pelvic floor so that people can understand that the true pelvic floor are the three layers of muscles in the pelvis, and the perineum is more external. And it just helps with for people to conceptualize because most women have never even looked at their own pelvic floor or perineum.
So I'm trying to do a fair amount of research on my own into this whole pelvic floor thing. I would say the last couple of years I've really started to dive in, mostly because I love to run and I can't right now. Like it's just not it's not good right now. So why is mobility so important
Mobility for the pelvic floor or mobility in general?
for the pelvic floor
Yeah,
specifically?
because the most common pelvic floor dysfunction is too much tension in your pelvic floor. I mean, think about the number of people that are stressed and just like I say, like a tight ass. That is your pelvic floor. And you
I
carry
think she
that
just called you a tight
subconsciously.
ass, Callie.
Everyone knows it's fine.
I'm just,
Same.
yeah.
So,
I always think of what is in Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Who's like, oh my gosh, it's been so long. He's like, in 2
Cameron?
weeks you'd have a diamond. I'm like, yeah,
I think
that's
his name's
me.
Cameron.
Every time, yeah. Okay, back to you.
so the reason that mobility of the pelvic floor is important is because if you have mobility, you can relax your pelvic floor. And a lot of people are walking around unaware of what relaxation of their pelvic floor even feels like to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have full relaxation, you can't have proper activation. If you think about if you walk around with your bicep flexed the majority of the day, right? Or even after carrying something heavy for any amount of distance in your bicep curl, and then you try to lengthen that muscle, you try to like stretch your arm out, it's tight and it's achy and it's short, and you can't fully contract it back either because now it's overworked.
Mm-hmm.
And what is really unfortunate with our pelvic floor is we start to, for emotional, societal pressure, shame reasons, disconnect from that area of our body from a very young age. So then we're not necessarily recognizing consciously when we're holding tension there. Okay, so if you're listening in, just bring your awareness to your pelvic floor and relax your butt, relax your pelvis, and just like relax your abdomen, breathe into your butt. And
Doing it
you,
right now.
it's like,
Me
oh,
too.
yeah, I was holding way more tension there than I needed to. But that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
how we start to live our lives, right? And that becomes our habit. And then we have to peel back these layers of the onion. We have to start with relaxation first. The best way to do that is with breath work. I
Okay, because that was
say,
my next question is how does
yeah,
breath relate to all this?
yeah. So your diaphragm sits right under your rib cage like a tent. And then you have your pelvic floor, which is directly below it. Physiologically, functionally, what is supposed to happen when you breathe in, your diaphragm should lower. Your
Mm-hmm.
pelvic floor receives that breath and also lowers. And then as you exhale, they return to the start position. I don't say they lift because then we get this like you have to lift up and in. No, just let them relax. So try that. Breathe into your like bottom or into your low back and try to feel that in your pelvic floor. Emily, try to breathe lower, not up into your shoulders at all. So don't come here, but just let your back and belly relax and then breathe into your bottom. Like if you were going to expand 360 degrees of your favorite sweatpants with your breath. And I'll feel a lot of people in office try to muscle through this instead of just getting into the flow of it. It's harder when you're sitting because your diaphragm also works for stability. So the best way to start with it is to lay on your back or
I
belly.
did a little bit of this. I did a lot of PT, pelvic floor specifically after
Cool.
I had a cesarean. But so I
Perfect.
did a little bit of the breath work, and it's interesting. I actually hadn't connected it until right now to why it would help identify those muscles.
Hmm.
So I did a lot of this on her table, and just even doing it with you right now, I'm like, oh, this is the point. I can identify them first of all,
Cool.
because it's
Yeah.
hard to know.
When I'm exercising, I've been like hyper aware, but I don't know how aware I should be. Like if we're doing a strength training workout, should I be, exhaling, when I'm doing a squat every time? Like, is that something I need to be thinking about with every exercise?
Right. Such a good question. So if you're doing a heavy lift, like your goal is you're doing heavy that day, then yes, it's ideal to synchronize, what I call synchronize your breath. But otherwise, I want you to think about how often during the day are you like, okay, left foot inhale, right foot exhale, left foot.
Oh,
So we have to retrain our brain. Yeah, we have to
so
retrain our
not just for
brains.
30 minutes a day?
No. No, I mean like you don't think about it during the day because it's
No.
it's automatic, it's subconscious. You have thousands of reps of breath during the day. So what we can do in session is train our brain to perceive the task at hand and respond accordingly. So you need activation of your pelvic floor to walk, but not as much or more than you do to sit, more than you do to lay down. And it's all brain work. It's all your brain perceiving what you're going to lift and activating without having to do a Kegel or without having to, really consciously think about it. So this is where when we start with a breath, you bring that awareness to those muscles. You can feel what true relaxation feels like, and then you start to feel the difference in activation and whatnot. And there's different exercises that I have people do based on what symptoms they have currently, whether it's incontinence or prolapse, which are the big pelvic floor dysfunctions in research, but there are two of so many: pain during intercourse and just general pelvic pain or constipation or I can't run without leaking or all of those things, hip pain, low back pain, that could be either contributing to or coming from pelvic floor dysfunction.
I'm wondering from you, what are some red flags that women, whether they're postpartum or they've never had a baby, just in general, what are some red flags for you where you hear that and you think, oh, we should be doing some work down there?
Really, truly, any pelvic symptom, we should be addressing the pelvic floor. But here's the thing, especially as women, realistically, it should always be part of your practice because of how much emotion we also hold in that. It's like this is our
So
foundation.
interesting.
Yeah. So it's so important physically and emotionally. Otherwise, you become totally disconnected from your powerhouse. That's a really intimate, powerful, functional, important area. Like I said, that we become disconnected from due to whatever reason. Sometimes trauma, right? Whether it be birth trauma or sexual trauma. But you will see, so I'll work with women and we'll go through different relaxation exercises and then different functional, like here's how you build stability and teach your pelvic floor to work with the rest of your body. And then like some major life event happens and their symptoms come back. And that's pretty common because it isn't like I can't tell you just do this for 6 weeks and you'll never have these issues again. It would be like saying, I want you to eat strictly paleo for 3 months and then you just go off the rails. It's not going to matter, right? Because our postures and and mostly I think our stress load and our nervous system tax is what really gets us. So, not to get super nerdy, but your vagus nerve runs right through your diaphragm. So, if you're breathing like diaphragmatic breath, you're down regulating your system, your pelvic floor can relax better emotionally and physically. You're going to be more calm.
Hi, Emily here. I'm interrupting briefly with a quick ask for you. It's the only ask we're ever going to make of you, and it's this. If you're enjoying the show, if these conversations are adding value to your life, please make sure you're following us on whatever platform you usually listen on. This really helps us grow the show and make sure that we are capturing quality experts for our interviews. So please support the project if you're enjoying. If you're feeling like you have extra energy, please check us out on social and make sure you're following along there at the Real Mom Hub on all platforms. And we have a weekly newsletter. You can sign up for that on our website at therealmomhub.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful for y'all. That checks out.
Grounded.
I have a toddler right now, so fully practicing that daily.
Yeah. But even with them, like if they have a tantrum and you come down to their level and you can hug them and help them, like they feel your breath on their chest, and then they will match your breath and they'll start to do that deep. And then they learn those skills. Okay, so way easier for me to tell you right now when I don't have a toddler and I'm sitting in a quiet room. But remind yourself, space between stimulus and response is the breath and how we can help ourselves downregulate, and they're going to match that energy.
So we're talking about the breath. We're talking about like connecting to the breath and separating from stimulus. And you're talking about how all of that works with your pelvic floor. Quick question before I get to my next question. Are you doing any internal exam as part of your work?
So I do internal exams immediately postpartum, obviously, after
Okay.
baby is born as a midwife, but I don't do any internal exams as a chiropractor or as a pelvic floor assessment. However, I teach women how to do their own internal pelvic floor exam
Get
or
out.
release. It's so easy.
Whoa.
It's so easy. So some women are not comfortable with it. and they want to use a wand. So if you go Google pelvic wand, the intimate rose is the first one that'll come up. And there's different
Looking at this right
options.
now.
And it's like a hook. I recommend getting the vibrating wand because that can help increase sensation and just that like proprioception into that area. It's super important that one, you look at your own pelvic floor or perineum, and two, you think about when we return to intercourse postpartum, we trust someone else with our body before we even trust ourselves. Or when you go to a pelvic floor PT, but you've never even like done your own internal assessment, you're comfortable with some stranger doing an internal exam, but like thinking about sticking your own thumb in your own vagina and feeling for tension is like, what? So I try to talk people forward into that, like just in the shower or in the tub, insert one thumb vaginally and feel clockwise. If you have areas where you feel like that feels more tense or it's painful, you just hold full thumb but gentle pressure and breathe into that spot because trigger points are created in the brain. So when your brain recognizes that tension and then you send breath and relaxation into it, we're starting to break up that pain or trigger point pathway from the brain instead of just focusing on the spot. And then you insert the other thumb and do the other way, so counterclockwise with the other thumb, and you can like kind of press backwards. You can do that rectally if you have tailbone pain and it's chronic. And actually, almost every single muscle of the pelvic floor directly or indirectly connects to the coccyx or the tailbone. So doing an internal rectal release can be extremely powerful. It can be like a major emotional release, but can also be really powerful for people that have pelvic floor tension.
Wow.
You've related emotions to your pelvic floor several times now,
Mhm.
and it's the first time I've ever heard anyone do this.
Yeah, that's insane.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, where I became more, I guess, aware of this is in regards to scar tissue, because any areas of our body that we are all energy, right? So any areas of our body that have more tension or more tissue is going to store more energy. And it's both like a emotional and metaphysical aspect of coming out of your head and into your body too, which is kind of emotional for people in and of itself. It's just intense when you realize like, wait, I haven't slowed down in 20 years and here I go and now I've got to like face these things. But our body stores all of that. If you've ever read the book The Body Keeps the Score, it's really good.
No, but it's on multiple lists, so maybe this
Yeah.
is my sign.
Yeah, and just thinking, I mean, no matter what your spiritual practice is too, some people will talk about your root chakra and that as the foundation of your safety. And it's like, yeah, even when you think about developmentally in utero, the way that the body develops and when, and everything is so connected to the pelvic bowl and the vagus nerve and the diaphragm. And so we store so much there. And then if you want to get even more into the weeds and talk about epigenetics, we store stuff from generations before us.
Yeah, that's
Let's
insane.
go.
When I first learned that,
Yeah.
I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
can
how
be.
many of my cells live in you, Callie? I'm older.
I love it. And it can be super overwhelming or feel like this major responsibility, like, wait, I have to heal my entire lineage. But it's also super freeing if you choose to look at it like, oh, there is far more freedom in my destiny than just like this is how it was for my family. It doesn't have to be that way.
When you say lineage, I've heard it can take 7 generations, or we hold the memories of
Yes.
7 generations.
Yes.
Is that how far back you're thinking as well? Are we connecting to the same
Yeah,
source
I've
here, or
heard
do you have a
anywhere between
different
7 to 14. 7 is the most
7 to
common.
14?
Yeah, I mean, that's like
Oh my
so much.
gosh. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some super
Wow.
interesting. I have a colleague who does body code and emotion code, and that is wild. And yeah, there's just some really, I mean, you can get into it. So when I got into pelvic floor work, I was strictly like physical. We need to stop having women think that they have to pee their pants and have prolapse just because they've had babies or whatever. And then I developed the functional progression, and then there's all these women crying in my office as they start to like come back into their body. And that's where I was like, oh, This is so much more than just getting your pelvic floor in shape.
I mean, Emily and I were both kids of the 90s. I'm thinking about, Friends or like 90s TV shows. I mean, this is well known, but like just like body image stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we were probably sucking in for all of
Oh,
high
yeah.
school.
Yeah. I
My
remember
mind is
hearing
blown.
when I think it was either postpartum with my first or right before I got pregnant with him. I don't know. If you suck in all day, you can lose 5 pounds in whatever amount of time. I
It's like
believe
those
that
tennis
shit.
shoes.
Yeah. Or what a
Okay,
great way to build core without going to the gym, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
No.
can I ask you a couple like very quick tactical like physical
Yeah,
questions before we
sure.
get okay.
Callie's in your office.
I'm in your office. Okay, if somebody wants to get back into running but
Yeah.
is peeing themselves, aka me, what are first steps? Like, do
So
you run or
first
do
up,
you really need to wait?
so you can run. I don't love to take exercise away from people. I love to figure out how we can make it work for them because at the end of the day, you're going to want to move the way that you want to move. The way that now, if you're only running, then we also have the conversation about what you're running from and why you need a constant endorphin
Okay, that's
rush.
all I was doing until motherhood. So you got me. That's literally all I did. I'd like
Yeah.
do a plank every now and then, but I just run and run. I wasn't even fast. I'm not a good runner, but yes, I needed the endorphins all the time.
Yeah, so there's that, right? You have to address that piece of it. But so starting with pelvic floor relaxation, so you can like take a crappy yoga mat and roll it up, or a towel and sit on it the long way and spread one cheek to the side and one cheek to the side so your sit bones are right on each side of the towel and then sit back up against the wall, let everything relax, and just breathe into your full core. I tell people to breathe into their butt because if I tell you to breathe into your belly, you'll likely come too far out the front and neglect your back body and your pelvic floor. Or start with laying on your back. Start with laying on your belly. If you lay on your belly and you feel your breath into your pelvic floor, the pressure from the floor will expand your low back and just give you more proprioception, right?
Hmm.
And then I would start to work you through the functional progression. So there's a sequence, FP1 through 4, and the transitions. But if you're having active incontinence and or prolapse, I start you with FP4. And that is an inversion. So it's kind of like coming into bear position. And you keep your knees nice and wide so that your glutes are activating properly because they're a major part of your pelvic floor function. And then you breathe in that position. So what that does is it takes all the weight off of your pelvic floor and puts it on your diaphragm. And when you breathe into your bottom, then your diaphragm has to do a little push up.
Mm.
And still, your pelvic floor is receiving that breath, but you're also eccentrically loading the diaphragm when you're exhaling slowly on the way down. So then when you come back to upright, there's better relaxation and also proper activation or function in both the diaphragm and the pelvic floor. So the top and the bottom of the core canister, if you will. And then I would start to progress you through the other movements, but I would say, okay, do FP4, do like 10 to 20 reps of FP4 before you run, and then down regulate after you get back. Like lay on the floor, do start position for FP1 or something to down regulate your system and relax your pelvic floor again. And a little bit of it is training for endurance too. If your goal is to run 3 miles, but you pee at 1 mile, then we go to 1.25 and see, okay,
Mm.
what are you feeling in your body? Can you take a break and do some breaths, even like on the trail or whatever? How can we increase that? But statistically speaking, strength training is important in the long run for pelvic floor function. So I would also be having the conversation about adding true strength training, not high intensity interval training, not more endorphins, not more of a
Yeah.
butt pick into your routine. So
Yeah.
now I run twice a week and I lift 3 days a week.
I love that. That's such a great because I now really like I'm doing the Expecting and Empowered
Yeah,
app. I don't know if you yeah, I
mhm,
love it. It's like taught me how to love strength training, but
perfect.
I really miss the other pieces. So that was great. Okay, my last
Yeah.
question. I went to a little bit of pelvic floor PT and I need to keep going. I actually called today, Emily. I
Good
started off.
job.
Thank you. Thank you. Um,
She's like,
I
I'm
was
so proud of
told.
you.
I am. Callie will help like 5,000 other people and be like, yeah, maybe I should call my classic.
Okay, so when I went, She told me I had way too much tension. I mean, she was doing an internal exam and diagnosing what you've already diagnosed, I think. And she gave me a sheet that she goes, I usually give this to kids, but I think you might need it. It was called the mooing technique.
Mm-hmm.
If you know me in a professional way, maybe stop listening to this episode. So it was literally like mooing while you poop.
Yeah.
Because pooping, okay, is this real?
Yeah.
Because I can't get myself to do it.
Because you don't have to do that. You could use a pinwheel and like blow on a pinwheel, but just
Oh.
getting yourself to relax your pelvic floor. It's so similar during birth because our jaw tension mimics our pelvic floor tension. And like you have three diaphragms, your vocal diaphragm, your respiratory diaphragm, and your pelvic diaphragm.
Oh, I
And
love that.
so when you make in birth or like when you're having a bowel movement, which both things, you need a fully relaxed pelvic floor for. The deep, low noises are what relax, not the high pitch. When you think about the high pitch, it's like we're coming up and away from that power. Or with the lower noises, you're like sinking into it and down regulating and relaxing. So yeah, that makes sense, but you don't necessarily have to moo.
Okay. I can blow. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to send you a pinwheel.
I would do the internal assessment and relaxation for yourself too. I would order a pelvic wand as
Yeah.
well. The benefit of doing it with your
Yeah.
thumb though is you're feeling it through your thumb and through your pelvic floor, whereas with a wand, you're one step removed.
Yeah, the wand sounds scarier actually, but maybe, yeah. Okay. I'll start with the thumb. I'll graduate.
So if you're up there with your thumb, I think I know what I would look for in myself now, having done a lot of internal work with a professional,
Yeah.
which was really, really necessary because I had so much scar tissue that needed to be
Yeah.
messed with, released.
Yeah.
I mean, there were points where she was in there and I was feeling things deep in my hip and in the sole of that one foot. I mean, it's so
crazy.
connected.
Probably obturator internus if you're feeling it in your hip. And there's a specific muscle that like runs through the pelvic floor area. But yeah, there's different muscles that it's a trigger point, so it will refer to different areas of the body. And
So what are you looking for? So if I'm up there, I have data now
Yep.
from my experience. My left side's much more cranky than my right typically.
Right.
I'm really curious. I don't know why I never thought about doing this myself. I want to go look for that. But if Callie's trying to be
I thought you were just going to say, how do I do this on someone else? I was like, Emily, you're not putting your thumb up there. The way you started this, I was
that
like,
was not on the
no.
table.
She's
No,
like, I'm
not even on the
curious.
table.
So,
But like, we don't have a reference point is my point. Like
Yeah.
we don't know. I'm not gonna stick my thumb up anyone else's Yahoo. It's not
Right.
gonna happen. So if I don't know what I'm looking for and my basis of normalcy is my own body,
yeah, but you
what
don't need to
are some
compare it to anybody
guidance?
else. You just need to compare it to what you're feeling. And the first
Okay.
step is even going to be like, oh, this is what this feels like if you've never felt that before.
Sure.
So the very first step is going to be this is what this feels like. And then from there, you're comparing it to the tissue around it. You're going to know if you
Oh.
can like press down with your thumb and freely move, or it's like, oh, I can't hardly press because there's a lot of tension because of other areas of your body that you've stretched before, and also just your intuition and coming back into your body. You'll feel difference in the tissues and different side to side. And I'm glad that you brought that up because even though there's multiple layers of the pelvic floor, it also can be different side to side. And it usually is because most of us have a dominant side. So there's usually one side that will carry more tension in than the other.
So
makes sense.
fascinating. Hey, Cal, do you
Hey.
remember when I was first pregnant? One of the first questions I came to you in a panic over?
What do I wear?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, what the heck do I put on my body? And do you remember the first recommendation you had for me?
I'm sure it was Kindred Bravely because I tell every single new mom that they have to look into Kindred Bravely.
Yeah, no, that was how I remembered it too. Yeah, I think
Okay.
specifically the leggings were
Fave
the starting.
products.
Absolutely.
Leggings, bras. I mean, everything in between. You know what I've been wearing recently, which is funny? They're really nice bamboo, no slip, like hospital socks.
Shut the front door.
I was out of socks, put them on. They were so nice. I haven't taken them out for 3 days.
I've never tried those. They're incredible. All of the things I've had from them, I've had for like 3 years. No wear and tear even.
No, it's
Somehow
amazing.
they don't pill. They're airy. I mean, phenomenal product. And this company is founded by women. It's led by women, moms specifically. So they get us. We love them.
So how do listeners support this mom-owned business?
They can use the link in our show notes. Start there and make sure that you enter our code, the Real Mom Hub 15 at checkout for 15% off your purchase.
And you can buy all these staples that honestly you'll keep in your drawers long after maternity, postpartum season is done for you.
Yeah, I never put mine away. My
Worth
body
it.
shrank back almost back to normal.
And so did the clothes.
The leggings still fit me.
Incredible.
How? We don't know.
Incredible.
We don't know, but we love them. Thank you, Kindred
Bravely.
Okay, so just some stats, because Kelly, you were talking about peeing while you run. Apparently that's something that happens to 85% of women in the postpartum. And 76% are reporting leakage like during daily activities, like normalcy after the postpartum period.
76 is that what
76,
okay.
and only 15% are getting help.
Oh.
So just throwing those numbers out there because guarantee there are many women listening right now who are in a similar boat. So hopefully this is I find this fascinating and helpful. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about right after the postpartum period. Let's say you get like 6 weeks. Let's say you're cleared for sex or you're cleared for arbitrarily by like someone who doesn't know your body. But I'm looking for a timeline for when it might be healthy to start doing these things. And if you have any other tips or guidances for women who are freshly postpartum.
Sure. So with the functional progression specifically, I say between 2 and 4 weeks postpartum, depending on your birth. So unmedicated vaginal birth without any tearing, you might be able to start back into some of like FP1 or even just like the positions with breath around 2 to 3 weeks, but most of the time around 4. And then with a C-section, you're probably looking at more like 4 to 6 and typically closer to 6 because that's such an extensive surgery, which by the way, as you know, does not get near enough PT as it should. It's like you get less information after a C-section than you do after a shoulder surgery. But it isn't like this like cookie cutter, you can do this then because it's obviously dependent on what you're feeling in your body, what your sleep is like, what your nutrition is like, where you're at with all of that. Postpartum is so much more of a roller coaster than pregnancy is. Pregnancy is this like linear build to this event that in the big scheme of things gets the most attention but is the shortest amount of time, and then postpartum is forever and it's a roller coaster because you have another human and maybe multiple of them, plus your hormones are shifting, plus all the things. So I say you have to remember to give yourself grace. Again, easier said than done when you're in it. Make sure you have a really good circle, even if it's a small circle of people that you can call on if you're struggling emotionally, because that will affect things too. But just remembering that, usually by 3 or 4 months, you can start to return to what your desired fitness routine is. Maybe it's not to the same weight or the same reps or whatever, but that will come. A dear friend of mine used to say, slow is fast, and it's true. The slower that you, or more intentional really, that you take your postpartum recovery, the faster that you will actually fully heal.
That makes sense.
Sometimes bleeding happens until like 6 weeks postpartum, and then sometimes between 6 and 10 weeks is when you see that final sloughing off of the last like scab from the placenta. That wound inside your womb is like the size of a small dinner plate. If that was on your leg, you would not be going anywhere, but it's internal, so we can't see it.
And we don't talk about it, and you don't get a manual when you go home from the hospital. Yeah. I definitely want to touch on your thoughts on what we should be doing more of for women in postpartum. But I'm hoping to start with going to your experience becoming a new mom. I want to shift to your work with women, prenatal, postnatal, birthing. How did your own matrescence or entry into motherhood inform what you do now?
Yeah, so I was 19 when I got pregnant with our first, and I was unconsciously incompetent. I didn't know what I didn't know. We weren't planning on getting pregnant. And so I just went to the doctor because that's what you do. But there's this like, I wanted a midwife and I wanted a natural birth, was this thought, one of those like inner knowings in the back of my head. And it was really medicated. It was highly disconnected. I had every single intervention but a C-section, and he ended up in the NICU for precautionary antibiotics, and he was fine. And then I knew I wanted to be a midwife. So I started down the track to go to nursing school. I got into the nursing program. I spent a year in the nursing program and I hated it because I felt like I was just learning how to medicate people. I was like, I can't do this. I cannot. First of all, we had a wound care unit, and I thought, no way in hell can I clean wounds. I don't. And then we had a death and dying unit, and that one is sensitive to me now, especially. But I thought I could never attend the birth where a baby didn't live and like continue on. So I quit nursing school, and my husband was in chiropractic school at the time in embryology, and I was just studying what he was learning instead of my own materials. So I switched to chiropractic because I was like, he's learning how to help people. And then we got pregnant with our next. The midwife I wanted said she'd be my doula, and I was like, whatever, I don't know what that is, but if you're going to be there, then that's great. So we couldn't afford her because we were both in school and our insurance wouldn't cover her in the hospital. And so she was my doula, and he was born July 17th of 2010. And by the beginning of August, I was in a doula training with him in Ames, Iowa, because I was like, that was phenomenal. And my husband also said I would never want to do birth again without a doula. So throughout the rest of chiropractic school, I was a doula for other like friends and chiropractic classmates and whatever. And I graduated. So that was 2010. I graduated chiropractic school in 2013. And I was a doula for quite a long time. I volunteered to be a Reiki client for this woman that was newly starting Reiki. And during my Reiki session, she was like, chiropractic is a stepping stone. And I looked her dead in the eyes and was like, that's the most effing expensive stone I've ever purchased in my life. I was like, you're crazy. So, not really thinking she's crazy, but thinking I decided that I wanted to be an OB because I wanted to change the system.
Yeah.
Big,
It's
tall order.
so sweet. Um, so I signed up and studied my butt off for my MCAT, and then so I was supposed to take my MCAT in March of 2020, and then it got canceled because of COVID. And in May of 2020, I was a doula for a friend of mine, and I couldn't go into the hospital. So I delivered her to the front steps of the ER department, like about ready to have a baby, and we were met by no fewer than 10 people in full PPE. I mean, hat, glasses, full gowns. And I was like, no, this is not, I can't do that. That's not, what am I doing? This is such a power trip. Like, I'm gonna change the system, you know, at the expense of probably my mental health and my family. And so I canceled my MCAT, which had gotten rescheduled, and enrolled in school to become a CPM, which is an associate's degree. So got my doctorate first, and bachelor's, and then got my associate's degree. And then yeah, I've been practicing since I graduated in December 23 or 22, and my license came March of 23. And my sister was my very first client.
Oh my
She
gosh.
had her little girl in July of 23. So I was like, thank you. That was perfect timing. And then we opened our birth center. We moved the locations last July, and the first baby was born here 11/11 of 24.
Wow.
There's been a lot of really beautiful and a lot of really hard in between.
I didn't realize that it was a full-on birth center also.
Yeah,
You guys do so much. Oh my gosh.
I'm getting better about that. I hired someone for marketing.
Oh, good job. Well, it's
Yeah,
great.
right.
What were some of the biggest gaps that drove you to take action that you were seeing? Your own experience, friends'
Oh my
experiences?
goodness.
What were these misses that we were having for women?
Honestly, I think it was the postpartum experience with our son. It's like, what was that?
Yeah.
That was awful. Like I said, there was just this inner knowing. Kind of like when I pulled up to the hospital and I just knew that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And like when I was in that class and the nursing program and like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing and just feeling that calling. And my husband, just bless his heart, goes along for all of the callings. But I wouldn't change it because when I was in chiropractic school, I traveled to Prague in the Czech Republic, and that's where I learned everything I know about core and pelvic floor.
Oh, wow.
So
Whoa.
I would have never thought I was going into chiropractic school wanting to work with female athletes. I didn't want to be a stereotypical prenatal chiropractor. Everybody is one of those. And I am anything but wanting to be status quo, apparently. So, but here I am, right? Because I was like, oh, this is important. We need to not be doing Kegels and crunches and be focused on aesthetics. We need to bring people back into their body, teach them how to move.
I tried to go to chiropractor with my first pregnancy, and I went to one session, and he was like, "Yes, make sure you keep doing those crunches." I was like 30 weeks pregnant, and I was like, "All right, I'm out. I'm
What do you mean
out."
crunches when you're 30
Like
weeks
sit up. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes,
Like what it
I was. My mind was blown. I was like, "You have no what?" Anyways, that makes so much more sense why you are speaking the way that you are in a like mind blowing way to me about pelvic floor. That it was not in America where you learned it. Am I allowed to say that? I'm just
Yeah,
like, oh, that checks out.
yeah, it does for sure, for sure. Yeah.
So what about postpartum would you change? I mean, for me, I had such a strong experience in my postpartum. That's why this podcast exists, is we're trying to learn more and shed
Yeah.
more light on ways that women can be supported.
Well,
But
first
what
of
would
all,
that look like for you functionally?
ACOG changed their recommendations and guidelines in 2018, and practice has not changed. They've recommended more frequent care that addresses mental health and physical health and sexual health and all of those things, but it's inside of a system that doesn't have time for that. So,
Mhm.
thankfully, as a community midwife, I have 45-minute visits for mom and baby at 24 to 48 hours postpartum, and then 3 to 5 days if they need that, and then 2, 4, and 6 weeks in office. And so we need a lot more hands-on, in-person connection, period. We have to hold
Yeah.
ourselves to that standard as providers, or it's just going to continue to be a royal shit show.
Well, and even that in person is so important, and you've made a relationship with that client. So when
Yeah,
they don't know themselves, which I don't think most moms do postpartum,
No,
yeah,
you
we're in
know, you
no
need
condition.
somebody, especially, and your husband might not know you if it's, or your partner if it's your first,
yeah.
like I know my husband was like, I think this is normal because most women that I know, this sounds like a similar experience. And yeah, that was probably true, and it sucked.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so hard. And it's hard. It's a little bit hard to talk about because you don't want to scare the living daylights out of people, but it's hard. And so you have to be, we need more education for postpartum during the prenatal period that helps couples talk about what do you want the first fews to be like, the first few hours, the first few days, the first few weeks, the first few months, because it will happen whether you talk about it or not. And then who is in your safe circle? Like, who do you trust that you can call on day or night and they will be there? And who do you know that you can share anything with, even if you're like, hey, I'm not feeling good, and I think I need to tell somebody that it might be a little worse than I'm even willing to admit, because most of the time it's the people that are around us that recognize it. It's not even us, sometimes until we're all the way through it.
Yeah.
And we were never meant to do this alone. We were always meant to do this in community. It's been that way for so many years. It's only been like we need to do everything by ourselves for such a short time. And it's breaking women and it's breaking families
Mhm.
because it's breaking women.
Emily and I really are trying to dive into just what does transformation through the hard look like in motherhood in
Hmm.
general. And I think a concrete example is that pelvic floor health. Like most women, even if they have problems, aren't going to get it treated until it's bad enough, like you had a childbirth experience that's making things not work. I mean, how beautiful to like have to learn what that feels like It's so hard, and yet you're going to come out so much more powerful once you figure it all out. But it's so hard. And I guess my point is, like, you are going to just be more and more powerful the more
Yeah.
you do and the more you learn. And it's good stuff.
So you had this wild awakening with your first, and then you had 3 more.
Yes.
Were there moments you can point to or practices, things that you implemented in your subsequent pregnancies, deliveries, postpartums that were more transformative or allowed you to sit in that transformation in a positive way more than in a completely like soul shattering what is happening to me way?
I would say, honestly, so our first 2 were born in the hospital and our last 2 were born at home. Our second son, it was so transformative because I stayed in a place of curiosity. I was in this space of, did I need all of that? Or what is my body capable of? And I just really want to see how this goes. And I trusted my doula so much. And so even though it was in the hospital, it was like that was so transformative. And I think the biggest lesson there is to just like that surrender and that curiosity instead of this is the birth I'm going to have. We always get humbled by birth, always, 100% of the time, in whatever way it comes up. And so then with the next, I would say the other transformation that occurred was just recognizing what actual natural birth really was because we were at home in our tiny little 900 square foot house in Davenport, Iowa, and it was just Kyle and I. And he was like, you need to call the midwives. And I'm like, it's not labor yet. And they had to drive 3.5 hours, 4 hours to get to me. So he was like, you need to call the midwife. And so they arrive 20 minutes before he's born. And I was like, can I push? And she said, do you feel like you need to? And in that moment, I was like, what? Yeah. Okay, then push. I'm like, you don't have to check me. So still, third baby in, like, oh, that baby, he would have come way before they got there if I would have thought I need permission. So that was also transformative in realizing, wait a minute, I thought I just had a natural birth in the hospital. And you just start to realize, holy cow, I have all this inner knowing that has been so shut down and inundated by societal norms and pressures and whatever, overridden because of shoulds and trusting other people more than even myself. So, yeah, I would say the middle 2 were the most transformative in that sort of way, if you will, but each of them changed me for sure.
So beautiful.
So I'm hearing curiosity is huge, which makes so much sense. I'm also hearing you say you left extraneous things that you didn't know were not crucial. So for your clients who are maybe not able to, or just women, not even clients, women who don't have access to great midwives and want as natural a birth in a hospital as possible, what are some of the top things that you would empower them to leave behind or say no to?
My top thing would not be to start with what you need to say no to. It would be to start to what you need to say yes to with your intuition and like listening to your gut and trusting yourself as a woman and as a mother. If you're still enough to notice, you will know. You will know what the right answer is.
And it is really hard to learn how to be that still too. Like we started this conversation talking about that, so it's funny that that's coming back up. And it's really hard when you have small kids too.
Yes.
But it's like static noise around me telling me that it's just the most important thing to do. Right. Which is also hard, like I'm like, well, I have to get my workout in. I'm not going to journal because I have to get my workout in. But yeah, just trusting your gut also I don't think is something that most of us do in this age of social media and experts, and there's just so many resources and so many people smarter than we are, but you're an expert saying, no, you know best.
I think I've been humbled enough by birth as a mom and also as a midwife and as a doula to just know that it's bigger than us.
So if we treated the 4th trimester and actually scratch that postpartum for like the rest of your life, if we treated that as seriously as we treat pregnancy and delivery currently, what do you think would change for women?
I think we would have a lot better mental health outcomes and just overall health outcomes because I really think that our nervous systems would actually start to heal and, our lineage would start to heal and it would be really, really powerful.
14 generations, really
Yeah.
stuck on that.
Hmm.
There's this song that I did with a women's choir a while back, but it's called Lineage, and it's by Andrea Ramsey. She's a current female composer. Would recommend a listen.
Okay.
But it's amazing. It's all about like our grandmothers were strong. And then the very last line is, why am I not as they? And even when I taught it, like we talked about it, and I was like, frankly, ladies, I don't know the answer. It just like is this powerful song that we're gonna sing, and I don't really know why. But hearing you talk makes a lot of sense. Like we've just, just done a lot of damage over a lot of generations, and we're trying to get out of it. But like recognizing that there is damage is the first step,
Yeah,
and that we're still powerful.
for sure.
And not just damage. There's so much good and so
Yeah.
much to be proud of in
Mhm.
our lineage too, I think, for all of
Oh.
us.
Yes.
Yeah, and pride of our grandmothers.
Well, Callie, I have a lightning round ready.
I figured
for
you did.
I do, but Callie, I want to make sure all of your questions were addressed.
I'm watching all your videos like on Instagram. Like, okay, belly dancers have to have perfect pelvic floor. Is
Amen.
this true?
I'm sure, yes, I would love if all of my prenatal clients would belly dance. That would be fantastic. I would love to do research on what the birth outcomes would look like, but I can't say for sure that belly dancers, yeah, but I'm with
Really,
you.
what I wrote is, if I do this all, will I be a belly dancer?
Yeah, no doubt. So, that's funny you say that because a local woman that has a dance studio had like reshared something I shared yesterday, and I was like, we need to host a class. Like, you need to do a prenatal
Yes.
belly dancing class.
I love that. We have a local belly dancing troupe, and now I'm like curious to get their read. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll have one of them on the pod, honestly. You
I
never
mean,
know.
what's
I
the
bet
worst
they're
that's
so
gonna happen? You're
connected.
gonna have fun.
Yes.
Right.
And it'd be really good for my type A. Like, I'd be so embarrassed to start.
Yeah.
Okay, Emily, back to you.
Maybe that's really fun homework for you. See if you can
No.
get it on a class.
Okay. All right.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Go
Are
for
you
it,
ready
Emily.
for lightning round?
Yes.
Okay. In one word, ish. Self-care to you is.
Bliss.
Oh, how do you get there though?
I don't know. You said one word, and
This
that's
is
exactly
a
what
lightning
came.
round. Yeah, Emily,
You
you're
said
breaking
one
the
word, and that's
rules.
what came to me.
Just looking for some hot tips. If you could put one thing on a billboard for all moms to see, that would be, you can use more than one word for this one.
Be here now.
Ooh. If you could make one practice or treatment mandatory for all postpartum healthcare professionals, it would be.
I would say a breathwork training or pelvic floor training, like mandatory for them to take, you mean, or to do?
Sorry, to implement in their care ritual for
Oh,
their
yeah.
clients.
So I would teach them the functional progression.
Functional
If they do it
progression.
yes, if they do it
Okay.
themselves, they will be able to help their clients. And if they implement it into practice, they will have far better patient outcomes.
Oh, I'm looking that up. We will link it in the show notes. Functional progression. Okay. What is the smallest change in your life for your wellness routine that has made the biggest impact?
The smallest?
Yeah, like the smallest daily or weekly practice that has had
Journaling.
the biggest. Yeah.
Yeah, hands down.
The most joyful part of your day is.
Hmm. When our family is mostly all together. I say mostly because they're growing and they're dispersed, but I just love it when we're all, most of the time, when we're all together.
That's great. And then our closer, what makes you feel beautiful?
Oh, the things that are coming to me are like sunshine and just like sitting in my egg chair with my journal and my cup of coffee and being still. So probably being still.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Still,
I'm
this is a theme.
sticking
You
with
say
that.
you're not a quiet person, but you have a lot of practices that really get you there.
Dr. Erica Boland, or Erica, this has been so fun and educational. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where do we learn more?
Yeah,
Where's
where
all
can
the
listeners
information?
find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at the Movement Midwife. Our business website is Cooley, Coulee health.com. And on the website, you can click on Movement Library, and the functional progression is there. There's glute exercises there. There's other core exercises there. So I would say look that up as well.
And I saw you have like packages that you can purchase. Are those online workshops that you can do?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay. Like prenatal, postnatal.
Yeah, so the most common one is you can do a consult with me virtually, like a core and pelvic floor consult with me virtually, and then I create a specific plan for you.
Because I was really hoping you were closer to me. You're too far, so that's great.
Same. You're 2 hours away from both of us.
Yeah, that's a bit.
Thank
cool.
you so much.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled.
Thanks, girls.
Nice.
I will
Let's
see you.
get back
I
to
gotta
your
go get the
busy
kids.
life.
All right.
Yeah, I gotta go get the kids, so let me know how I can share and everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been listening to The Real Mom Hub. Our music is by Naomi O'Leary. You can find us on social at The Real Mom Hub. We're not the authority or even very educated on the medical issues discussed. Do your own research, talk to an expert, make your own decisions, and call us if you learn anything new.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram, or better yet, subscribe to our newsletter. If you don't, that's fine. We can all move on. Our purpose here is community, so if we've resonated with you, tell a friend.
Thanks for listening.